And then finally, if this does not come to pass, and Iran and diplomacy doesn't work and Israel doesn't strike, then we're going to be focusing a large part of the coming year and afterwards on confidence building and reassurance among our allies as we try to build a containment regime to deal with a nuclear Iran. And I would raise the question, one of the main challenges we'll face in confidence building is how do you convince allies that a country that was unable to prevent Iran from achieving an outcome that we defined as unacceptable, that is acquiring nuclear weapons, will also then be able to have the willpower and resolve to deter a nuclear Iran. And we'll face challenges in our theater engagement strategy in dealing with our allies in trying to build a containment architecture to deal with nuclear Iran if that comes to pass. Just a couple of quick comments about the whole issue of strategic communications, which is an issue that Admiral Mullen raised in an article in Joint Forces Quarterly a few months ago in the fall, which I all recommend you read. And I'm glad to see that he's hammering away at this point, because it's something which really deserves much greater attention and focus, not just in terms of American opinion, but even more so, and this is something he did talk about, in terms of our strategic communications in the region. If you look at the military literature that's been coming out of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, one thing, in fact, I didn't do a count of articles, but I think it's just my impression that there's probably more articles about information operations and PSYOP and the like, which is the way that the military does strategic communication, than about any other subject. And it's because one of the things we've learned in Iraq and Afghanistan is that in this particular cultural milieu, information has an impact, a dramatic impact, and perhaps is in some ways the most important tool we have in dealing with counterinsurgency and influencing perceptions of allies as well as enemies. The problem is, this is an area where we used to be very good in this area. We used to be very good at, well, what we now today call strategic communications. It used to be called strategic influence or psychological warfare. It's something which we should have a natural proclivity for, given Hollywood and Madison Avenue, and it's vitally important to the success of our policy in the region that we get better at it. But there are all kinds of cultural obstacles, as well as bureaucratic and organizational obstacles to succeeding in this area, and we have to find a way. This is a I won't say it's unexploited capability, but it's a undervalued capability, which we need to do a lot more in order to. It's the one instrument or the one element of national power that potentially could yield great payoff in this part of the world. And the military people in the region get it, and they've understood how to do it, and they're doing it very well. But we're not doing it very well on the strategic level and on the policy level, and in Washington. And we need to do a lot better than we have in the past. And the final comment I'll make is the issue that wasn't raised, which is the Arab-Israeli conflict. It used to be any kind of talk of this sort would focus, at least a fair degree of time would be focused on the Arab-Israeli conflict. I understand that this is an area where State Department has the lead, not so much DOD. But clearly in the past, this is something which the DOD did devote a fair amount of time in its thinking to. But it's clear now with 2+ wars further east and dealing with the issue of Iran and Iran's nuclear program, the Arab-Israeli conflict does not loom as large in the mind of at least some of our policymakers as it used to. And it reminds me of the comment that was made by James Wolfenson after he left his job as the Quartet representative in an interview with an Israeli paper where he stated, and I quote here, "There has to be a moment when Israelis and Palestinians understand that they are a sideshow. The real global politics is the politics of war and the politics of nuclear weaponry and the weight of the population." And I think that's a point that was further driven home by Admiral Mullen's comments here today.